I Am Anonymous. Chapter 1. Enter Jacob Irving. Jacob Irving wakes up to the annoying, repetitive, and loud beeping of his alarm. He groans and rolls over to shut his alarm off. Once fully awake, Jacob gets up and goes through his morning routine. He works as a landscaper. It was the job he could get with just a high school diploma. He only earns a minimum wage, lives in a small apartment, and only has a bicycle to ride to work. He gets up and gets dressed for work. He wanders into the kitchen and eats a bowl of Cheerios with a glass of milk. Anything but a bowl of cereal is a luxury. Breakfast of fucking champions, Jacob grumbles. Then Jacob finishes his breakfast and sets his dishes in the sink. He grabs his keys, his camouflage baseball hat, and his multi-tool. Finally, he leaves his apartment. The apartment is on the second floor. His apartment is on the second floor, so he has to walk down a flight of stairs to get to the bike rack. Jacob unlocks the lock and sets it under a brush nearby. Soon he pedals off to work. The job site is less than 2 miles away. His co-workers were Mexican. Arrived a minute later. The homeowner wanted them to set up a desert xeriscape, which involves planting desert flowers, planting desert shrubs, hauling 50-pound sandbags, and carrying large rocks. Jacob wasn't sure if rock was the right word. A giant-ass boulder was more accurate. "Good morning, Johan," Jacob greets. Jacob speaks fluent Spanish. "Good morning, Jacob. Are you prepared to work?" Johan says. "As prepared as I can be." After Jacob greets the other workers, they work on the project. However, Jacob keeps to himself and works alone. His self-imposed doesn't bother his co-workers. The temperature increases rapidly as the sun rises by 9 a.m. It was 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Jacob was used to working in the heat, so it didn't bother him much. The work isn't back-breaking, and it's fulfilling. His co-workers were blasting their native music. For lunch, they have chicken tamales and tequila. The tamales are delicious, and the tequila is strong, as Jacob likes. Around 1 o'clock, the owner walks outside to check the workers' progress. Jacob immediately recognizes the owner. It is the kid that he went to school with 3 years ago. The problem is that Jacob hates him. The kid, Henry Richards, is the son of a highly wealthy oil tycoon who owns a company with oil rigs worldwide. Henry had no problem flaunting his parents' money. He throws exceptionally wild parties, wears designers' clothes, and drives expensive cars. Jacob doesn't hate him because of the money, but the way Henry treats him. Henry had picked on him for years, as did everyone else at school. Henry used to trick Jacob into doing things that made him look like an idiot and laugh at him. Henry doesn't recognize Jacob at first. It is when he gets closer to Jacob he is recognized. "Jacob, is that you?" Henry asked, with a mischievous grin on his face. Jacob knew this looked too well. "Oh, shit," Jacob mumbles. "Dude, it's been forever. We graduated 3 years ago. That's almost forever." "Too soon for my taste," Jacob grumbles. His grumble is low enough to where no one can hear it. Henry couldn't hear it. "I remember you DJing at a bunch of my parties. What was your stage name?" "It was Mr. Something. I can't remember what your name was." Jacob sighs and tries to shut out the bad memories. It was Henry, who talked Jacob into DJing and getting a stage get up, a suit, and a green ski mask with a question mark on the front. This incident was when they were freshmen. The DJ job lasted throughout high school. My name was anonymous. No title, Jacob reminds him. Jacob chose the name Anonymous because he wanted to remain anonymous behind the ski mask. That worked for 4 years until a particular bastard exposed Jacob on stage while dancing behind the turntable at the senior prom. That sealed Jacob's hate for Henry. Yes, that was the funniest shit I've ever seen, Henry laughs. Yeah, fucking hilarious, Jacob mumbles sarcastically. I'm having a party tonight. You should pull up and do your DJ shit again. I'd rather not. Dude, I can fucking guarantee that you have nothing to do tonight. It'll be great. Maybe you'll get a girl like mine. Henry points his thumb back at his house. Jacob looks over Henry's shoulder and sees a girl that looked to be in her early 20s. She is wearing a skimpy bikini that isn't within the borders of public decency. I prefer not to spend time with girls whose job is to dance on a pole. It's better than the girl you have. Oh, wait, you don't have one, Henry snaps. Jacob can see Henry's irritation. Henry isn't used to being told no, especially from a lowlife such as Jacob, since Henry is an asshole and gets what he wants. Jacob resorts to his favorite way of dealing with people he hates, being snarky, sarcastic, and straightforward. It's odd to deal with people, but Jacob enjoys the reactions. Unlike rich asswipes like you, I don't like girls that live in a brothel, Jacob quips. Huh? A whorehouse, dumbass. Anger rises in Henry. Jacob tries to not smirk. Fuck you! Henry shouts. Henry glares at Jacob and walks away. Jacob returns to his work. The workers keep working until the sky turns pink and light purple. Jacob helps his co-workers load their tools and grudgingly translates for Henry. When Joan goes to get the payment for the job. Soon after, Jacob leaves on his bike to return to his apartment. When he arrives, Jacob goes to his mailbox and grabs his mail. The amount of mail causes him to gulp. It is that time of month. Time to pay the bills. Bills include credit card bills, rent, utilities, and a student loan he took out before dropping out of college. Jacob chains up his bike and goes into his apartment. When he enters the apartment, Jacob lies the envelopes on the table. Jacob fixes himself a sandwich and a glass of water before looking at the bills. As he ate, he added up the cost on a piece of notebook paper. When he finishes adding, Jacob is sweating bullets. The statements only left him $5 to live off for the next month. Jacob stares blankly at the amount. Anger and frustration build up in Jacob's body until he can no longer contain it. He angrily swipes the plate, the glass, and the bills off the table. Then he puts his face in his hands. His parents didn't prepare him for life and how to survive independently. They kept putting it off. The time they could have used to help Jacob, they spent coddling and spoiling his younger brother, Daniel Irving. Jacob didn't want to do the job his parents wanted him to do. When Daniel was interested, they spent most of their free time with Daniel while pushing Jacob aside. His parents treated Daniel like a king and Jacob like a pauper. Jacob slams his fists down on the table in disgust, frustration, and anger. For the first time, Jacob feels like taking his own life. The, the bills, the years of being picked on, his neglectful parents, and his loneliness weighs heavily on his decision to kill himself. It would be quick and easy to take a gun to his head and pull the trigger. The only problem is that Jacob didn't own a gun. He only has his multi-tool and an old K-bar knife that he bought as a teenager. Slitting his wrists or stabbing himself would be too painful. Now, committing suicide was no longer an option. What Jacob does next, he couldn't explain, not even if he tried. It is like an innate instinct that suddenly awakens inside of him. He gets up and cleans up his mess. Then Jacob walks into his bedroom. He grabs his old backpack, which he used to take to school, from under his bed. Jacob filled it with several t-shirts, 3 pairs of jeans, socks, and plenty of underwear. He slipped his multi-tool in with his clothes, a notebook, a box of mechanical pencils, and an advanced survival book written by an American Special Forces and Eagle Scouts. After he loaded his backpack, Jacob takes a hot shower. The reason doesn't occur to him. He just felt like it. He finishes his shower and puts on some clean clothes and shoes. Jacob slips on a light jacket and his camouflage hat. Then he attaches the K-bar knife and its sheath to his belt. Finally, he picks up his wallet, which had $200, and puts it in his pants pocket. Jacob leaves his bedroom and walks to his front door. He's about to walk out, but feels like he has forgotten something. Jacob returns to his bedroom. After looking around the room, Jacob spots the thing he is failing on. His dresser was a small stuffed animal. It is a pony. Its body is dark blue. The mane and tail are yellow, and it had black button eyes. It was a gift from his teacher when he was little. He called it Thunderclap. He picks up the stuffed animal and holds it close to his chest. "Why am I doing this?" Jacob asks. Of course, Thunderclap doesn't answer. Jacob removes his backpack and sets Thunderclap inside of it, and puts his bag back on. This time, Jacob leaves his home for good. He opens his door, steps out, and closes it, after standing there momentarily contemplating his decision to run away. Jacob descends the staircase. He leaves his bike locked to the stand. Jacob doesn't want anyone to know he's gone. Jacob walks towards a patch of woods that borders the apartment complex. He knows that on the other side are the city limits, and leaving the city is his plan. Eventually, Jacob arrives at the city limits, a small creek, about 4 feet across and 7 feet deep. It travels along the city limits. On the other side is a clearing that stretches over the horizon. If I'm going to leave my life behind, Jacob thinks, might as well leave my identification behind too. Jacob takes out his wallet. He pulls out anything that identifies him. Then he breaks any cards that he has into several pieces. Jacob stares at the pieces. Getting rid of anything identifying him is not the best idea in the universe. Then again, running away wasn't either, so Jacob tosses the pieces into the creek below. The pieces float away as Jacob crosses the creek. Once he's across it, he begins his seemingly long trek. Jacob walks for a few hours. When he grows tired, Jacob removes his backpack and rests at the base of a tree. He looks at the bright full moon by its position. He could tell it was between 9 and 10. He had read how to do that in a survival book. Jacob closes his eyes and tries to get some needed sleep. However, rest seems to evade him. Jacob tries a meditation technique that he had read about on the internet. Easier said than done. Thoughts of his parents plague his mind. He grits his teeth, his parents, and his over-pampered brother. His family, Those god-forsaken people. Jacob Jacob's train of thought was interrupted by a twig snapping. It causes him to jump. When there's no other sound follows it, Jacob closes his eyes. Another twig snaps. This time, Jacob becomes slightly afraid. He knows cougars live in this area, and attacks weren't rare, but not often. Again, no other sound came after it. Jacob settles on the idea that it's his mind playing tricks on him. Once again, another twig snaps. Then a gentle snort follows. Jacob has had enough. Who is in the... Jacob turns around and comes face to face with a piglet. A wild piglet. Jacob screams, the piglet squeals and runs off. He assumes it is going to run far off. However, it runs to a team of hogs. The piglet's mother grunts loudly and charges. The rest of the group follows. Jacob slips on his backpack and runs. Jacob knew that hogs could maul and trample people. Though they are not as dangerous as cougars, hogs are deadly. Jacob continues running through the woods. Braziers cut his skin, and branches strike his body. It's painful, but not as painful as being cut to shreds by oversized pigs. For several minutes, Jacob runs in a dead sprint. However, he isn't paying attention to what's ahead of him. He focuses on what's behind him. Jacob assumes that the only broadly spaced trees and saplings are ahead of him. Plus, it's dark. It's so dark that he doesn't see a rock about the size of a softball, and he trips over it. Jacob puts his arms out to catch himself. Jacob went through the leaves, the pine straw, and the dirt. At first, Jacob thinks he's falling through a hunter's trap, but he doesn't stop falling. Jacob begins to flail his arms like a child trying to swim. He keeps falling and falling and falling. Jacob screams until his throat is sore. Jacob soon passes out from the fright. He doesn't even notice when he hits the ground. Jacob gasps as he wakes up. It's daytime. Birds are singing and some frogs are croaking. He sits up and looks around. He notices he isn't in the same area as he was at night. Instead of oak and pine trees, there were apple trees around him. His backpack and hat are laying next to him. Jacob furrows his eyebrows in confusion. He pats his body to check for broken bones. It surprises him to find no broken bones, but something catches his eye. His hands were green. He looks down at his shirt to look at his chest. It was green as well. Confused, Jacob rubs his head. His long black hair wasn't there. Jacob pats his head rapidly to see if he feels right. There isn't a single strand of hair. Where the hell am I? Jacob asks himself. He stands up, slips on his backpack and hat. He wanders around the apple trees. Jacob guesses the trees are part of a farm. The evenly spaced trees give it away. He picks an apple from a nearby tree and eats it. Walking deeper into the apple orchard, he hears some farm animals making various noises. Jacob hopes to find someone so he can ask for help. So, he heads in the direction of the sound. Then, Jacob sees an odd sight in the corner of his eyes. A strange tree stands about 20 feet away to his right. It looked like an apple tree, but had different colors. The leaves were dark teal, and the branches and the trunk were maroon. Jacob walks closer to the tree. The fruit dangling from the tree branches is just as strange. It's an apple, but has stripes and the lines are shades of gray. Curiosity seizes Jacob. He grabs the odd apple and gives it a gentle pull. However, the apple remains attached to the branch. Jacob pulls on the apple again, a little harder this time. Furthermore, the apple refuses to let go. He tries it again, with a little more force. No dice. You're a tough little bastard, Jacob says. Jacob yanks the apple with all of his might. Instead of getting the apple, he gets a burst of electricity. The shock sends Jacob flying and yowling like a frightened cat. He lands on his back and begins gasping for air. Eventually, he catches his breath and stands up. Jacob looks around, but with more caution. Jacob is about to keep walking when he hears voices from behind him. "It came from over here," a female voice calls out. The voice sounds like Rebecca McIntyre. He hears footsteps, but it sounds heavier and faster than human footsteps. The footsteps stop as Jacob turns around. The thing is in view, until he looks down. Then, he gets the surprise of his life, or so it seems. 4 ponies, each varying in height and age, stand before him. They are different colors, as in the broad color spectrum. One has an oversized bow in her mane. Another has a yoke around his neck. The oldest has a scarf around her neck. And the last has an old beat-up cowgirl hat on her head. Besides the different colors, the ponies don't look like regular ponies. They look incredibly cartoonish. They have large eyes that look almost human and short muzzles. It was enough to freak Jacob out. "Who are you, and what are you doing in our orchard?" asked the pony with the hat. "Talking ponies? What?" Jacob stutters. "My granddaughter asked you a question," the eldest pony snaps. Jacob slowly begins to back up. The 4 ponies move closer. Jacob stops, turns around, and bolts. The pony with the hat gives chase. Jacob runs as fast as he can, the backpack slightly slowing Jacob down, but he keeps running. He spots a fence bordering the orchard. He slows down to climb over the wall and sprints across the farm. Chickens, sheep, pigs, and other animals scatter as Jacob sprints across the farm and down a small path. A small town comes into view. Jacob hopes that there might be some humans who can be of help to him. However, his hopes are dashed away as he arrives in town. There are ponies everywhere. Unicorns, pegasi, and regular ponies. Each has different colors. Not one human in sight. Jacob turns around and sees not one, but 6 ponies chasing him. Once again, he begins sprinting. This time, Jacob sheds his backpack. Jacob runs through the center of the street. Ponies dive and move out of the way. Some scream as Jacob passed by. A female unicorn pulling a cart isn't paying attention as she walks out into the street. "Get the hell out of the way!" Jacob screams. The unicorn tries her best to run forward, but with no luck. Jacob hurdles the cart. Surprisingly, he clears it and sticks the landing. Jacob resumes running. He sees a patch of woods at the edge of town. He turns his head to one last look at his pursuers. They are still running after him. Jacob faces forward, but Jacob's head hits a low-hanging sign. He's instantly knocked unconscious. Twilight Sparkle observes the human. She recognizes the species because of her adventures at Canterlot High School. After the human ran into a sign and knocked himself out, she had Applejack tie the creature up and hang him from a nearby oak tree's branch. Twilight had run back, grabbed the things he had dropped while running, and laid them next to the tree. "What is it, Twilight?" Rainbow Dash asks as she flies near the dangling creature. It's a human, but he looks. Twilight pauses as she searches for the right word. Different. Rarity slowly walks over to the dangling human. Then the human begins to stir. He groans and opens his eyes. Rarity quickly backs off. When Jacob opens his eyes, he begins to struggle against his restraints. Then he looks down as he sees his pursuers. Where am I? Jacob asks. Wait, why am I tied up like a piñata? Now he's a bit ticked off. You were trespassing on my farm. Then you ran off, Applejack announces. Oh, that... You're probably not going to believe this, but... Jacob hesitates as the wind blows him to where his back is facing the mares. Okay, can someone turn me around? Twilight uses her magic to turn Jacob around. He looks at his body, then at Twilight, and back again. What the hell was that? Jacob asks as he blankly stares at Twilight. Magic, Twilight replies nonchalantly. Do you not have magic where you come from? Yeah, but not the kind of magic you have. The magic I've seen is pulling a rabbit out of a hat. Oh, and the oh no, where did my bra go magic show. Twilight and her friends look at each other in confusion. It's pretty clear you guys didn't go to parties in high school, Jacob states dryly. I know how to party, Pinkie Pie announces. No offense, but you would look like you'd throw a 6-year-old's birthday party for an 80-year-old. Every pony has to release their inner filly. Jacob scoffs. The last time that happened, I looked like an idiot. Now, will someone let me down? I can feel my circulation in my arms and legs being cut off. Twilight uses her magic to unravel the ropes restraining Jacob. He falls to the ground, but he lands on his feet. Then he walks over to Twilight. Jacob raises an eyebrow as he looks down at her. He can see tiny droplets of sweat building up on her forehead. Who are you exactly? He asks as he sets his hands on his hips. Twilight gulps as she can see a large knife attached to his belt. It makes her nervous when Jacob puts his hand on its hilt. I'm Princess Twilight Sparkle. These are my friends, Twilight replies. She tries to add some authority to her voice. The other 5 ponies wave as Twilight introduces them by name. Okay, Princess, do you mind telling me where I'm at? I've got a feeling I'm not in Kansas anymore, Jacob asks as he looks around. Right now, you are in Equestria. The town you just ran through is Ponyville, Twilight replies. Ponyville, huh? That's original, Jacob grunts. And where is my stuff? Twilight points her foot towards the oak tree. Jacob walks over to the tree. As he gathers his things, he can hear one of the ponies walk up behind him. He turns slightly to see who it is. It's Pinkie Pie. Jacob ignores her and looks through his backpack to ensure his stuff is there. However, Jacob stops when Pinkie Pie asks, "What's your name?" Jacob stands up and sighs. He's about to say his real name, but he stops himself. He remembers that he forewent his identity as Jacob Irving. Destroying his identification card is proof of that. Though, it was more symbolic than anything else. Jacob sighs again. He can sense the pony's patience growing thin and turns around. Now he decides to get rid of his identity for good. I am anonymous, Jacob says. Anonymous, Rarity questions. That would explain the giant question mark on your face. Anonymous reaches for his face and slightly brushes it. Now he thinks this dimension is playing a cruel joke on him. He tries to forget his past, and the dimension turns him into something from his past. He finishes his previous task and puts on his backpack and hat. Then he looks down at the group of ponies. It's been a pleasure conversating with you, but I need to find some shelter before nightfall, Anonymous announces. He adjusts his hat and walks forward. Hold on. Despite scaring my critters half to death, you can stay in the barn, Applejack offers. It's not much, but it will help. Anonymous stops and turns around. Staying in a barn sounds tempting, but Anonymous decides against it. Thank you, but no thanks. I'd rather rough it. Twilight is surprised. She has been taking mental notes on Anonymous so far. He has acted like a human, except for refusing Applejack's help. He seems confused and slightly overwhelmed, but throws her for a loop. Because he doesn't show it. His blank stares are almost concerning. Anonymous's eyes reminded her of her brother's eyes when he stood at attention as the captain of the Royal Guard. Are you sure about that? Twilight asks concerningly. I'm sure. I think I'm better off on my own. What, are you a survival freak? Rainbow Dash asks. Nope. I've been on my own for 12 years. I believe I can handle myself. Anonymous replies, as a matter of factly, I read many survival books in my free time, and know how to survive in the wild. Anonymous adjusts his jacket and turns around. He starts walking again. What about food and water? Fluttershy asks. Anonymous stops and sucks in the air through his gritted teeth. The ponies are starting to get on his last nerve. These questions about his survival and well-being are annoying to Anonymous. It's none of their damned business. He exhales. Anonymous turns once again. I'll hunt for something. A water source is likely nearby. This town wouldn't be here if there weren't a source, Anonymous answers. You'll hunt animals? Fluttershy stutters. This made her even more nervous. Anonymous nods his head. With what? Rainbow Dash asks, suspiciously. Anonymous pats his hilt of his knife. I'll fashion a spear or make a sling. Now, excuse me. I need to make a shelter. Anonymous turns around and walks away. Well, there was part 1 of this chapter. And, not bad. I can't wait to finish it. I've actually been talking to the author. I told him that these were long, and that ain't no lie. They're really long. So, I hope you all will enjoy the next ones, and I have a feeling you guys will. So, also, sorry for taking such a long break. It's just, I've been trying to get a commission for questionable ethics. Plus, on that, we've been getting close to 150, so I was kind of waiting on that too. But I wanted to get this out, and that's kind of it. Anything that's new, I'll answer in the next one. And stay golden, and have a nice day.